that is best noted for probably his work in the identification of UFOs, how to identify whether they're a hoax or a fraud. He worked with the Meier sightings back in the 70s and 80s, and he's here today to try to show us, or will show us, he brought his computer, show us how technology has changed and try to enlighten us on better ways of proving photos of UFOs, as well as other things, aren't hoaxes. So if Smitty would roll that tape, and I'll get myself back over there, we'll meet Jim Dilettoso.
Tom Welch was coordinating the scientific research in the United States. He coded this photograph, the jet fighter scene, and turned it over to science investigator and computer analyst Jim Dilettoso. Jim had analyzed over a dozen of the Meier photographs, searching for strings, overlay, or double exposure trickery. None were found. Further analysis showed that the distance of the jet was over 2,000 yards away from the lens of the camera, and the size of the craft was about 22 feet in diameter. But the most interesting discovery came when an energy field was detected, originating from the craft and creating an unusual pattern around it. Here Jim traces this field, showing the energy engulfing the Swiss Mirage fighter. The computer analysis report concluded.
Hey, well, I'm back. Jim, I want to welcome you.
Hi, Ted. Good to
Thanks
see you.
for showing up. And you know our co-host here, Jim Nichols.
Jim. Mm-hmm.
What kind of goodies have you brought for us today? You know, we brought you down here because, in fact, I've been trying to get you for a long time. I usually go out and see you, but you brought your computer. You're going to tell us a little bit of.
Yeah.
Let's start back with the Meier incident. How you were contacted and how it went from there.
Well, the Meier case was in the late 70s and was actually the first case that I worked on that was a new case. Prior to that, I had been working on testing the, quote, official photo set that APRO put out. APRO, the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization based in Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson here.
Right. Jim Lorenzen and Wendell Stevens brought me a set of about 30 photographs, I think really to see what my procedures were and were they a valid procedure. Prior to that, I had been working in film and television and transfer of scientific data to film and television. And I worked somewhat on the Shroud of Turin project and getting that into a scientific data into a form that would be useful in a film. So I worked out a procedure, investigated many other procedures, manufacturers, software, NASA, medical companies, a lot involved. Came up with a procedure, tested the pictures, got involved in the Meier case in about 1977. February of 1978 was when the next trip to Switzerland happened and a lot of new pictures came back, and we used our new procedures and tested the pictures.
Now, when Wendell and APRO, Jim Lorenzen came to you, what did they want to know? Was there a procedure already in the, I guess, in the files? Was something going on to being able to test photographs at this time, or was this something basically?
Well, I didn't know what existed at that time. The Navy and APRO and others had been testing photographs optically, of course, since the 50s. An organization in Tucson, Ground Saucer Watch, had developed a computer procedure, but I couldn't find enough about it, what the procedures were that could be repeatable. So we really had to start at ground zero, build scale models, take photographs of miniature trucks and buses and cars and real cars and airplanes, and build a database that we could count on, because people were counting on me to give them an accurate set of facts.
So
So there was no test procedure. We had to devise one.
So what exactly was your procedure? What were you looking for in these photographs that could authenticate them or prove them false?
Basically, you are analyzing the edges of an object first, and you are analyzing the contour and the light scatter over the surface. Now, that's done with the computer after film grain examination has been done, a microdensitometer, analysis of the film grain. Is this a dub? Have two pictures, slides been sandwiched one on top of the other, etc. Okay, let's say you get all that out of the way. And there's a lot of procedures we can talk about with that. But essentially, a large object and a small object have different properties. Light and edges. A camera takes an object in and out of focus and changes the properties of the edges. Like these television studio cameras here. When an object goes in and out of focus, what's really happening, the edges are changing. And by measuring the nature of those edges, you can determine where the object sits in a, quote, depth of field. Light on an object. Let's just take, anything curved. This pen. The pen is all black. But because of the lights, it puts a white stripe on the light.
Right.
The larger the object, the smaller the percentage, the ratio of that dot, because the light's going to remain the same. So what that means is a large object, the sun, would create a small line relative to the entire surface. A small object, the sun's still the same size. So the relative surface area would be different on a small and a large object.
All right. Now this is what we saw in the Meier film, Contact, that you were able to take the Meier photographs and compare those to a model of the beam ship, and your procedure can determine which is the model and which is the full-scale craft.
Yes.
So through your procedures, you basically proved that Meier was in fact photographing 30-foot, 20-foot objects that that were actually there and not models or paste ups.
Well, the conclusion that you just drew can be taken out of the test results. Our testing shows that it is a large object. The pictures that we tested, and there are many other photographs in the Meier case, but the pictures that we tested show a large object 21 feet in diameter at a great distance from the camera. Now, whether that's piloted by extraterrestrials or pilots from the U.S. Air Force, we can't tell because they didn't stick their arms out and wave.
But one of the issues, one of the major detractions of the Meier case is that, well, he was just photographing models, that he had models in his barn and so on and so forth.
Yes.
But your analysis showed that at least some of the pictures were in fact large objects photographed at some distance from the camera.
That's correct. They're large objects.
Okay.
And we published reports about it.
Right.
Detractors of the case have never published reports of their analysis and their procedure and what equipment they used and what the software was. And perhaps their opinion is valid. They may be dignified scientists, but they certainly did not do clear scientific work in analysis of UFO pictures and the Meier case. The detractors I'm talking about.
Right.
So what surprised me, because I didn't really know, I'm watching this tape, and I know Jim, that he has other photographs that he's worked with, but there was like an aura, a force field around that, and it actually entrapped that, what was it, that other plane that was going by there? There was another plane inside there. It seemed like there was a radiation or a force field around that.
That's exactly right. It seemed like there was. That photograph and 3 others I worked on with Marcel Vogel, who is a research scientist at IBM. And we theorized that there may be energy in the film grain, in the film crystals, that can be released by electromagnetic stimulation. You have to start with a negative or a negative made from the negative. can't be a negative, a print, and then a negative. It has to be a piece of plastic, light passes through it, makes a new piece of plastic. The idea is scientifically sound, that energy is captured in crystals, and by stimulation, electromagnetic or ultrasound stimulation, energy is released. Like a tuning fork. A440 on a piano makes the tuning fork vibrate. So you can release energy from the crystals, and new energy is released, and a new image on a charge-coupled plate is created. It is that image that we tested. And it seemed that there was an energy field around the craft.
So you didn't, in your analysis, you didn't just inadvertently come across this image that showed the field. You were actually looking for, you had a concept that perhaps there was an energy field around this craft, and is there a way we can maybe find it or record it here, or see that it's been recorded?
While the world was trying to debunk the photographs, we knew that they were real and had already gone on to the next step. We were not in the UFO community where we felt like we had to defend ourselves.
Right.
We just got on with it. It was exciting. I felt like I was on a mission from God, you know, to test the pictures. So we continued and retested the pictures and came up with other methods, because I guess I have to admit, it was a little bit disconcerting when people say, oh, they don't know what they're doing, they missed something, they whatever they said, you know. So we proceeded with methods and procedures in an attempt to really understand what this was. I'd never seen pictures like this. I worked in science and rock and roll and video, and you know, when you first see those pictures, it's disorienting.
Now, have you taken this? You continue to do photo analysis of other UFO sightings.
Yes.
Are you finding this similar energy patterns in other cases?
We have. Yes.
Has the technology advanced quite a bit more that you could go back to the Meier case again and take the and without a doubt now, of course, and as technology progresses, there will always be more technology. But do it again, in a sense, do it again to prove that you're right again to the naysayers.
I do it again all the time. They are demo pictures that live in our PCs. The computing power that we had available to us in the late 70s, $50,000, $100,000, $500,000 systems using mainframes and supercomputers, that power is now on a PC. The image processing software that we used to operate on a Gould 9000 now lives in PhotoStyler and Photoshop for a couple of $100 running on a PC. Same software, though. Just because it's inexpensive does not change the validity of the testing. So you can test pictures now if you have a proper scanner at 600 to 1200 dots per inch. That's the resolution. For people at home, your television is about 400 dots, though it's supposed to be 500 dots. So if you have a 12-inch TV, it's 500 dots per foot. You need to scan a picture at about 1,000 dots per inch to really be able to analyze that. And we do that all the time. And the Meier photographs from 1976 to 1980 are absolutely a large object, piloted by a large being,
Let me stop
5
you
to
there.
6 feet tall.
Now, did you ever, from that period of time, did you ever find a consistency, like a trademark that, I'm sure that there, what was there, 6 different crafts, different types of craft?
5 or 6.
Did one show up consistently and you could say, yes, that one was 3 years ago because it has the same characteristics as the other one? Does it have like a fingerprint when it comes to cameras?
There's 2 categories of characteristics. One is the relative proportions in the craft, height to width, dimensions, the mathematics involved in the proportions of the craft. That's one set of characteristics. The various rings, if you measure their diameters and can piece it together, they will add up to a linear length that is directly proportionate of the center. We can get into that some other time, but it's very interesting. In testing pictures sometimes now, that's what I go for first. I check the proportions. The other very interesting thing and a commonality factor is the pulsing of the light, the colors of the light that are around the craft if it's photographed at night. There's a white color, a specific blue-white color, and an orange color, an orange-amber color. Regardless of the kind of film, the photographer, after we've color corrected, sometimes even if we don't color correct, I can see it right away. The pattern, the relationship of the brightest hot spot in the center of the photograph and out to the edge. Some of the better photographs that we've analyzed are now in a computer program that'll be out in just a couple weeks. In fact, it's out in some places now, that has hundreds of photographs in it and measure trends and characteristics. And the ongoing characteristics are what's important.
I want to ask you then, so you cannot personally verify that the entire Meier case is true or false, because you were basically on just what, maybe 100 or 50 of the photographs is what you physically went over and checked and verified?
Well, I've been exposed to a few hundred photographs and the video and film, of course, and other samples, but we really tested in detail 4 photographs.
Well, the reason why I'm saying this is because I just, you know the same gentleman as I do, Glenn, and he called me up on the phone the other day, and he says he has absolute proof, it's on the table that the Meier incident is nothing but a hoax.
Then he should stop selling the books and selling the videotapes and using the logo in his brochure.
Well, that's kind of what I said.
It's heinous that scientists and researchers do that. I don't want to hear about any of this from these people sometimes. I want to see the published reports.
That's
I want
what I
to
wanted
see
you
the
to say.
science.
That's what I wanted
I
you
want
to
to see
say.
the numbers and the software, because
Absolutely.
people could say anything they want to.
And that's what I put him to the test, too. I says, I'm a little tired of this, too, Glenn.
Yeah.
I says, if you have it, show it.
Right.
If you don't, then leave it alone. Leave it die.
Yeah, Glenn's a good guy. I like him. He's just listening to yet another definitive UFO photo expert who doesn't publish papers and doesn't reveal what the software is and what the hardware is. And it's not that hard to do. If someone was really doing it, they would step up and say, guess what? I have a target board, and I have a PC, and I have a scanner, and we've looked at the edges, and I've done this, and I've done that, and you want to know what the software is, really? Okay. It can be done.
Oh, yeah.
And all that someone has to do is truly want to know what it is and how it's done, and they can find out and test the pictures for themselves.
Let's skip right on over to the Jorge Martin case, the Puerto Rico case. You did an extensive work. You
Yes.
presented a paper. You gave it to Jorge. He presented it at MUFON, and yet there's certain people that rise up there and say this piece of paper is worthless.
Yes.
But I was with you at the time that we scanned the photograph, and I can't remember, it was 2,100 pixels an inch or something.
2,400.
24. It was outrageous. It was amazing how this was done. And you looked for the cut and paste type of a thing. You had the machinery that is capable of now identifying.
No, this is the photograph that had the disc in Puerto Rico and the Tomcat, the Navy
Right.
Tomcat.
The
So
Navy.
Four
you,
photographs.
4 photographs, and you examined both the saucer and the
Yes.
Tomcat and everything, you know.
Well, we did even more than that. We did a flight path simulation. What would be required for the Tomcat to leave formation and make passes on the UFO and to sweep its wings, go into stall speed, and move around the UFO for that time of day, the lighting, the edges, the shading. It's a Tomcat, and it's a UFO, and none of those people that are detractors have tested the pictures. If they really were scientific about it, I'm in the phone book, they'd call me up. They'd talk about the procedures. It's just a way that the UFO community operates. They don't want the U to become an I, an unidentified object to become an identified object. There wouldn't be any reason to have these Boy Scout meetings anymore. Or, pardon me, scientific proceedings, conventions.
Like,
What's so funny?
I don't know. I don't have a clue of what you're talking about. By the way, I want to get this in too. This is a good time to bring this up. You guys out there, there's going to be some good investigators coming to Tim Beckley's conference. It's going to be up in, where is it going to be? Up in your hometown, Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Phoenix. Jim will be up there. Some of the people in the audience will be up there. Jenny Randall, some of the other people. So it's the 24th of September, that whole weekend. There's going to be some other interesting people up there also. So if you get a chance, check it out and find out.
Like the band will be there too.
Oh,
right?
the band's going to be there too.
The band will be there.
I want to also introduce a band maybe right at the end. So Shane or one of you guys, let me know when there's 5 minutes left, and I'll bring Jerry up here and the band up here, and we'll introduce the band and play some of the tunes. That was the opening of the. We changed the opening, so if the music was a little different, that was that was the band, the UFO band.
Well, that was shot on a home camera last week. It's a high-8 tape. It's not exactly our new music video. It was the band.
No,
right.
it was the music. We had the music. We had the music as the opening on it.
Right.
All right. Well, let's get to what you have here. If I can tell Smitty or something, if we can go ahead and utilize the screen.
It's a 486 portable computer. I have a Targa board in it. We network PCs over the phone lines. In and out of mainframes and supercomputers. Our main day-to-day activity now is moving video data through high-speed networks in and out of supercomputers for video on demand, which is part of image processing and a whole lot of other things. But in order to see what we do here, I'll have to be able to look at the monitor myself, because when I go into the video mode...
So you want Smitty to bring up the full screen?
Right.
Okay.
So,
are you there? Look at Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm typing it in. Oh yeah, so we're there.
Whoop.
Well, it's going to scan like that for a moment while it resets its mode.
I'll come back on.
Don't be alarmed, it's just chips breathing.
Well, they took a deep breath there.
You could turn the monitor just a little bit so I can actually see to operate. That's very good.
Okay, explain what you're doing here, Jim.
Well, we're going into a standard Windows program. Some of the applications that we have developed run in an Intel clone mode. Used to be IBM clone. It's really an Intel clone based on the processor that's in it. And it's a Windows program. And we've written some applications for people at home to be able to look at UFO photographs. So we'll look at that first and study a UFO database. It'll be in stores everywhere.
This is going to be on a CD-ROM and also on floppies?
Well, also on disk and on CD-ROMs, yes.
I have the...
So what we have, let's see if I can... Aha, I can't see my own menu there. It goes just a hair off the screen. Well, we'll try to guess where it is while the rest of the program comes up. It has a map of the world to show where the different sightings are, a sightings parameter selection here. You can decide what years you want to check. We're searching now from 1950 to 1993, but we could go all the way back into antiquity. What kind of sighting? Close encounters 1, 2, and 3. For now, let's just do sightings. Photographic evidence only. No death or injury involved. Abduction, psychic phenomena, movies, multiple witnesses, multiple UFOs, or cattle mutilations. Let's go just for photographic evidence. It's going to check the database now and give us the number of matches. Now, the hourglass here means that it's actually searching, and the map of the world will locate all the actual sightings that it has found as actual matches.
That's in Brazil, isn't it, that one there?
Right. Well, some of these are historically important because they have established trends of different sightings from around the world. let's go to the next one. So you can see right here, it says the number of matches is 201. And it's going to light up on the map. Give a description. This one is from Uruguay, if I'm reading it correctly. And there's a description over here of the event and what actually happened.
Who was where did this information come from? Who was the main programmer on it to be able to get this type of information and program it?
Dr. David White, who is a pretty well-known computer programmer and photo database creator. Some of his other projects include, well, in his company, which is SMC of Phoenix, Bodyworks, AutoMap, PC Globe, some very popular, pretty well-known programs.
Okay.
The updates will be available on phone lines. If you have a modem, you can dial up and get an update of some of the new cases. Or for investigators, we have created other modules so you can actually use your home computer, scanner, fax machine, a variety of communications formats to be able to ship pictures and case file formats around to each other.
How about video?
Well, video, if you have a target board or a Creative Labs video blaster, which is only a couple $100, you can scan home video direct into the camera. You could become a UFO electronic researcher at home for about $1,000.
Well, is this for libraries also? Would this be
for libraries, for schools, for scientists, engineers, researchers, scientists in the conventional scientific community that secretly want to know about UFO investigations, but it's been sufficiently discredited that they have to do it in
the closet.
In the closet.
Well, we're having these people probably within the 2 weeks they're going to come on and demonstrate all of this type of software and explain where this comes from, how it was devised, what
Very
the
good.
reason were. They contacted Jim and I, and they wanted to know if we'd be interested in it, and we said,
Yeah.
sure.
Come right down.
Come right down.
Yes, very good.
Come right down. Now, will does this help you in doing anything in your investigation to make sure that photos are photos?
Not in this. This is for the general public to have access to photographs.
This is just an archive.
It's an archive,
Right.
it's a database, it's a library, it's a filing cabinet.
But it's not an analysis
No,
format.
it's not an analysis tool. The photographs that we test then go back to Wendell Stevens or over to Dave White or over to Michael, the president of the software company, and they decide if it's a case of interest to the public, and then it gets programmed into the updates. The analysis tools that we use on PCs, I use a professional image processing package from a company in New Mexico, programmers from Los Alamos, and that program is not expensive. It's about $500. Used to be $50,000. Photo Styler, it's a couple $100.
Now that videos come out, and everybody has a video camera,
Right.
it seems like, is it harder or easier to identify a hoaxer or a photograph or, I don't know, a piece of film? It isn't film, a piece of tape.
Well, video isn't very easy to analyze because the resolution is so poor. 400 lines, 200 lines, 500 lines across the entire image. Whereas in photography, we could, for all intents, say that photography is really 8,000 lines. So when you transfer a photographic image to the computer, it becomes 1,000 lines per inch or 500 lines per inch. Video is between 500 and 75 dots per inch.
So the old Super 8 would have been much better to take a
Much
picture
better.
of
Absolutely.
because of the way of the emulsion.
Right.
Okay, now, if you have to instruct somebody out there that is driving down the street or wakes up and hears a beep in their head, shouldn't they get a piece of landscape as much as possible in the frame of the picture? Isn't that what you would like to see?
Of course, so we have a reference. So we can compare the edges of the unknown object to a tree, a rock, so we either know how big an object is, like a cactus, or we know how far away something is, like a signpost. We have to compare all the edges in the photograph of known things to the property of the edges in the unknown, whether it's an airplane or a car or a UFO, so we can rank how far away objects are by the property of the edges. It's actually kind of simple to do.
Now, Bruce Maccabee is another person that seems to be in the limelight of investigating photographs. I think he does a lot of work for MUFON. Do you guys use the same type of, is there a standard? Is there a standard in identifying photographs?
What?
Is there a standard with Bruce Maccabee?
Yeah, I know.
With
I know
Bruce
what you're saying.
Maccabee,
there is no published standard. There is nothing that MUFON. I've only talked to Bruce Maccabee on the phone. He's probably a very fine gentleman. I don't consider his procedures scientific at all. It's a bunch of hoo-ha. And if it was a scientific procedure, the papers would be requested from me. He would publish his papers, and the people at MUFON just.
Oh, I'm not saying that, Jim. I'm not putting anybody, because there's Paul
Okay.
Nathan that's doing it. I was just wondering.
Bob Nathan.
Is it Bob Nathan?
Yes.
Is there a standard? Is there a guideline that everybody should have to go by, and then go out from there?
They should use our standard, and then they should study that and go adopt another one. Until you've built as many models as we have, tested, I mean literally, toy airplanes, larger ones, parked on the ground, flying in the air, moving, database after database, and have controls that you know what to work with. You really can't assess something and say, oh, that's a small model, I know how it was done. It's not scientific. And not that everything has to be scientific in this to the hilt, but it's how you arrive at the truth. And we want to know what the truth is. Are there people from other worlds flying remarkable flying machines and coming down to Earth? We want to know that. I don't want people bluffing me that they've tested pictures and that we've made mistakes when we really haven't. What a horrible thing to do to people out there that really want to know if people from another planet are coming here. For amateur scientists to say that they've tested pictures when they haven't, and to say that a picture is true when it isn't, and to debunk the ones that are true, all of that.
Well, that's been one of the problems in the UFO investigating field, that photographs, it's been, the cliche that photographs are not useful tools as evidence. You're saying that a photograph is a useful tool. You have found a technique whereby actual photographs are useful tools in investigation.
Yes,
through a
they are.
scientific method. And that's what I was trying to ask, if there were guidelines to go by, and Jim just said the guidelines that they've, because there wasn't any at the time that he did it, and scientifically made the guidelines to go.
But I think still this is a stigma that goes in the community that well, UFO photographs are not reliable. End of story. And you're saying that they can be shown to be reliable.
They can be, if dealt with in a scientific procedure, such as a polygraph test or a voice stress analysis. They must be interpreted scientifically and must be done in a repeatable procedure so that another scientist can follow that same procedure and get the same results. That's what makes good science.
So what's the next step? Where are we going with this? Are you working on any new cases right now, or any new photographs that you can talk about?
Well, I've been the last year or so studying photographs from Mexico and South America, Puerto Rico, and photographs taken at night. I have a new interest in photographs taken at night, the color patterns and the movement patterns.
Now you're saying photographs.
Well, photographs and video, imagery. The most interesting pictures that I've seen have not been released yet, but I could probably talk about those. In fact, maybe they have been released. You know, I don't know everything that reaches the media, but the photographs are of a UFO during Cinco de Mayo, during the celebration in Cinco de Mayo, and multiple videographers took images of a UFO during an air parade. Mexican helicopters fly into the image, bank, and go away, while a UFO drops straight down out of the sky, while jets begin to fly in formation, and the UFO falls right through them.
Right.
Hovers, moves, and begins to fly at great speed, moves, well, in unconventional ways.
Isn't some of that footage in Messengers from Destiny?
It
Messengers of Destiny.
Yes, it is. This
Yeah.
is video taken from another angle by another videographer.
Okay,
Yes, some
and
of
you've
that
also examined the videos from Mexico City during the solar eclipse. Okay. What are your findings from that?
Well, the image quality is poor in that. It's an interesting object. What I've really been studying is whether or not it could be Venus.
Is that right?
Right.
Now, there were some that the elders were showing on there that had a similarity to the same, or the same reaction to the similarity of one of the beam ships that were
In the Meier case.
in the Meier case. Have you seen that or know anything about
No,
that?
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it had the same characteristics, and they were talking about the cupola that was up on top of it, and how they could see that, and the way it moved and wobbled. Now, how about, were you involved in any of the Meier case in the film, the actual movie of the film where it flies around the tree and back around the tree?
Yes.
And it's the same type of an operation that you look for as if it was just a photograph. You just do one frame at a time, isn't that
Yes.
right?
And look for the center of gravity, and look for the center of the apex of the pendulum if it was suspended by a string, and attempt to follow the movement if it was hanging on a pendulum and circulating around the tree, as has been said. What would the arc have to be, and what would the movement? It'd be impossible to do it on a fish line. By the way, to a television producer, Bruce Maccabee did indeed admit to a producer at Unsolved Mysteries, Bob Kiviat, that he indeed never really tested the Meier photographs.
Well, I never knew he did. I was talking more on the Gulf Breeze stuff that he's done, and his name always comes to the forefront when you talk with MUFON. It's probably their go-to guy anyway, and I just wanted to know if there was some commonality between your testing and his testing.
Perhaps we will collaborate sometime. You never know. At the moment, I don't consider it scientific at all.
MUFON has put a lot of distance between themselves and the Meier case.
Oh, I realize that. I realize that. For whatever reason, they've seemed to grab a hold of the Gulf Breeze thing and worked with it.
In the film Contact, there's some computer imagery that I believe that you've done, where it shows the craft and counter-rotating lights on the craft. Now, is that a light configuration that Meier reported?
No, we studied the motion picture film, which he shot on 8mm, and enhanced frame by frame the 8mm film, and recreated the reflections on the craft. I wouldn't say that those are light sources. I think that they are reflections. What it appears to be are pencil thin rods that all move up and down like this, and create a wave motion that moves around the craft.
And then that's around the outer periphery of the craft.
Right.
There's another set of photographs from the Meier case where it showed the craft, a set of stills. This is not the movie footage, where the craft in a sequence goes around very closely to a pine tree. Did you have opportunity to examine that film?
Looks suspicious, doesn't it?
Well, one of the exactly.
Yes, it does.
One of the main
suspicious.
detractors is that this is a potted miniature tree, and a model is being, placed around it. What was your conclusion of the examination of that photograph?
Can't be that, because of the characteristics of the reflection off of the surface of the craft, the properties of the edges compared to the edges in the house and the edges on the tree. That's what you do edge enhancement for. If there's that many objects in the photograph, you test for them all. Sometimes it's painstaking. It can take hundreds of hours to run all the filters on one photograph. Hundreds of hours. And I was not getting a suntan while all that was happening. I was sitting by the computer.
Didn't Wendell also give you a known fake?
Yes.
And to see whether or not you could find this without your knowledge, find out that if this was a fake. And
I determined it was a model.
Determined that it was a model.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if you have or not. There was some later pictures that come out that we call the wedding cake of the Meier incident.
Mm-hmm.
Were you involved in any of those?
Not in the early stages.
The one with the balls on it
yeah.
around. But can you comment on those at all? Or are you going back through that?
It's very odd looking. What we were able to determine was that well, it's odd. In some of the photographs, it appears to be 4 to 6 feet in diameter, and in some of the other photographs, over 20 feet in diameter. I did not have a clear enough set of images to actually do the testing. I needed to have no more than second-generation copies of that. And it just doesn't look right, some of the photographs. And I have to say that I do look at photographs and go by what I feel about them sometimes, but then I have to abandon that and use the procedures to test the pictures. And some of these procedures are what satellite technology uses, what spot imaging technology uses, cruise missile technology, because I do work in aerospace. And a cruise missile can tell if something is a tennis ball or a quarter or a basketball or the moon, because they all look like a disc out in front of the missile. There's many other software utilities involved, but we know how to test for these properties in an image. And the wedding cake photographs with all the balls on it looks funny, but tests out correct. The other interesting thing about that image is that Robin Shellman, who works for General Dynamics and the Navy in Groton, Connecticut, tested many years ago the sounds of the Meier craft, not knowing what it came from, and reconstructed a model of what it would take to generate those sounds. And he drew what looks like that craft.
Well, listen, this is pretty interesting. What time is it? We go out for 10, isn't it?
Yeah, we got about 5 minutes.
Got about 5 minutes. Real quick.
Real quick. Mentioning your background with aerospace and NASA and so forth, have you had opportunity to examine the footage of the SDS-48?
No.
No. Would you like
Michael
to?
Malin has.
Yes, and I have the report on that.
Yes.
Very interesting report.
Right.
Michael examined the Meier case photographs. Thinks that they're real.
Would there be any reason for you to, like you said, you're not in the, or maybe you are. Are you in the business to investigate these crafts? Would there be any interest to reinvestigate, reopen the files with the new equipment and go back over these?
I have been doing that. I'm not in the business of doing it, though. I've never taken any money for testing any photographs or taken any money for being involved in any media projects. I do it because I want to know, and I've developed a responsibility towards a lot of people that look to me to tell them what they think I think about it.
Well, caller, we're not going to. I'm sorry, but I can't take this call because I want to get some of these people in. You will be at the Blue Millennium tomorrow. Is that correct?
That's right.
And from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and you'll have some of your computers and people be able to ask any questions. Now, if somebody did have a photo, could they get in touch with you somehow, or no?
They can get in touch with you.
They get in touch with me, and then, of course, I can get back with you.
I'd love to have detractors come visit us tomorrow.
Skeptics?
Skeptics. There must be skeptics in Tucson.
Oh, there's all kinds of skeptics in Tucson.
Yeah,
Right now, is there something that you have, Jim?
Well, we probably should plug our program tomorrow at your church.
Well, yeah, we're going to be, in fact, it was on the radio. I'm going to give a lecture just before Jim's lecture at the Blue Millennium. I'm going to give a lecture at Your church?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock?
Okay, that's your church, and that's 5956 East Pima. For more information, you can call 296-4059.
And what are you going to be talking on some earth changes?
Yeah,
and stuff?
from 1:30 to 4, I'll be speaking at your church also on earth changes.
And then you're going to be at
Speaking at
the
my
Blue
church.
Millennium, the Blue Millennium. And there's a lot of people that come in. If they happen to have photos, maybe we can get to that also. I want to bring Jerry. We don't have any mics. Can we get the band, the members of the band,
Jerry
come
and
on
Susan.
up? Jerry and Susan, come up. You know, kind of, if you can.
We have a scientific multimedia rock and roll band, and we show
Just come on
UFO
up, guys.
pictures.
Come on
Yeah,
up.
come on up here.
I don't know. I didn't bring any chairs, but if you can squeeze in here and let me hit the, Susan, you need a chair? Do you want to get down here? Tell me real quick, you guys, how this happened and what happened and how you guys got together and what are you doing? We saw your rock and roll guitar the last time you were on the show.
You saw that?
You brought it here.
Oh, that's right. I wonder where you might have seen it from.
You're going to have to kind of talk loud because you guys aren't mic'd. You're just going to have to talk into mine. Okay, so what happened? How did this get together? Who wants to speak? Jerry?
Okay, here we go. I have a mic now. Briefly, what happened is that we're all three lecturers, and it seems that there was something that occurred for each one of us that gave us the idea. It sure would be nice to do some of this with music involved, because we all love music.
Okay, real quick, what do you lecture on? What is your, what do you do when you lecture?
I lecture on my own encounters, the beings that I've run into. I had about 5 years of meetings with them, and some other things too. I also lecture on aspects of their influence upon higher consciousness for us.
Okay, Susan, what do you,
What do I? I'll speak into your mic.
yeah, speak into my mic. So what do you do with the band? Are you a percussionist, right?
I'm percussionist. I play electronic and acoustic drums, and drifting more into the electronic end of it. But
And you lecture, yours is the Angels of Garibaldi?
I have been lecturing on the Angels of Garibaldi, which is my contact experiences, but I've kind of moved out of that, and I'm working on a research project in conjunction with a couple of other researchers at Simon Fraser University. It's based on that's in British Columbia. It's based on a hypothesis that I've developed as a result of my research in neurochemistry, actually, over the last few years, and it relates to, I call it the chemical contact.
Similar to what you've lectured here in town with.
That's right. I have lectured here at the library and at the Holodome.
And for those of you that you know, Susan has been also a guest host on UFO AZ many
right.
times. Jim, what do you do behind the band?
Yes.
Real quick.
I play keyboards, and I play computer graphics and animation.
So this 3 is the band?
3 is the band.
And is there going to be discs? I mean, computer disc or tapes? Or?
Well, we have an interactive CD that comes out in the winter, and a music CD, and with computer graphics and animation and music.
We're rolling out. So when they can see you guys up in Phoenix along with us. We'll be up at Phoenix also the 24th. If you're interested in the lectures, these people will be lecturing, and in the band. It's a great time, guys. You really got to be there. Thanks a lot.